So I think we should go back and steal that pumpkin. What do you think?
I think that that's absolutely a requirement at this point.
Yeah.
It's like pretty dark. It's almost after Safeway closing time.
I mean, they have like 5 more hours, so.
So by the time we get up the motivation to go back to Safeway, it'll be closed.
I can't properly vocalize me leaning this bottle towards you, but I agree.
Same.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's absurd that it's 10 days to Halloween and I do not have a pumpkin yet.
I also don't have a pumpkin, and like that's not that big of a deal because you don't have a pumpkin, except like I don't have a pumpkin.
That's against everything that you personally stand for, I think.
Like Halloween is and has always been my Christmas. Like
that's very true.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah. So, in some way or another, legally or otherwise, you need to get a pumpkin.
It's true. May or may not steal one from outside of Safeway, but like admittedly they bring it upon themselves. They just like leave the pumpkins out in the front yard. In the front.
First of all, front yard. Second of all, I don't know that we should go about victim blaming Safeway.
Right?
But also, I'm forever calling the parking lot area of Safeway the front yard for the rest of my life.
Well, think about it. During fall, they have the pumpkins there. During summer and spring, they have the flowers there.
It's very
true. It seems pretty much like a front yard to me.
It's very true.
I know.
During the holidays, do they have Christmas trees?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. What do they have during the holidays?
Maybe wreaths?
Maybe. Ugh, whatever.
I don't know.
Anyway.
During the spring, they have Girl Scout cookies, which is really all that front yards are for.
Honestly, though.
I agree.
What's your favorite Girl Scout cookie?
I can't eat any of them. And I've never had a Girl Scout cookie.
Okay, but that's not true because you can eat a whole bunch of them. There's like at least 5 gluten-free varieties.
Okay, well, I've never had a Girl Scout cookie.
Fair. Which brings us to my favorite factoid about you.
You're such a piece of shit.
Yep, I know. I thought I would keep this one on the down low, but it just brought itself up.
Please don't expose me.
So, Allie is gluten-free. Trademark.
Please don't. Okay, well.
But really, gluten-free is a lie. Nobody is gluten-free. That's not true. Some people are gluten-free. But honestly, I'm pretty sure like 80% of the time it's just because you don't like things.
Okay.
Or you don't want to have to eat them.
Don't expose me like that because, one, I get very sick when I eat things with gluten in them. But you're also not wrong.
I know.
Because there's definitely that, like, Samoa motherfucker that has coconut on it that I do not subscribe to.
Yeah.
So, if anyone ever handed that to me, I would, one, say that I am gluten-free because I can't eat it. But second of all, that's against my beliefs in multiple ways.
You know, your strategy is not dumb. My dad once taught me that if anyone ever asked me if I wanted to try Spam, to tell them I was allergic. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Please don't call me out like this. This is so rude. Because
Exposed.
I do die inside and also outside when I eat gluten. It's
That's
just that
fair.
There's a lot of shit that has gluten in it that I also just very much don't like.
And there's a lot of stuff that doesn't have gluten in it that you're like, I am not positive, so I'm just not gonna.
I hate you so much. God damn it.
I can understand that.
Anyway, whatever. I can't even blame it on you being tipsy because you would say this even if you were sober right now.
That's true. Also, I think it's really important for everyone to be aware that, like, I'm honestly not even sure if we're recording right now. Like, is this a conversation or are we podcasting?
Yeah, you are being recorded right now.
Okay. I, like, was pretty sure, but honestly not positive. And with that, I'm pretty drunk, Allie. How are you? How are you doing?
Well, I'm having this cider thing that you recommended to me, and I don't know how I feel about it. It's got archery on it and gold, neither of which I personally believe in, but it does say gluten-free on it.
That's true, it does.
But it tastes terrible, sort of, and I'm not really feeling anything, neither of which I'm surprised by, but I don't know. I didn't want you to feel alone today, so.
Thank you for drinking with me, but also you're at least a little tipsy because I've never heard you be like, ugh, it doesn't matter, I'm bored, before literally 4 minutes ago.
No, I actually feel the most sober that I ever have, other than the fact that I've never been more tired in my entire life. Because of the fact that I stayed up until like 2 o'clock last night because the dogs were not only interchangeably between licking and biting my ankles, but were barking outside for no particular reason, which was very spooky to me.
That
personally.
sounds very spooky.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Wowzers.
Yeah. But welcome to Chapters and Chill.
Yeah, exactly. Good morning, Chileans. Chileans?
You're getting there.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Good morning, Chileans. How's life? Pretty good, pretty good. Speaking of the spooks, we are still talking about Afterlife, written by the marvelous Shelbi Wescott.
Oh my god. I thought you were going to say Marvel for a second.
Which is written by Marvel. Wait, really? No. But
in a stunning turn of events, yes.
But also, Wescott is almost a superhero. So.
She's a superhero in responding to your inquiries about this book.
Okay, that's embarrassing, and you really didn't have to call me out for that, though.
I think I did, actually. Because the fact that you called me out about my dietary restrictions, so. I think I need to call you out about the fact that you have direct access to this author, and you have utilized it readily.
And, like, embarrassingly so. So, like, after I got done with Afterlife, I'm not even playing. I didn't even wait 5 minutes before texting Wescott with all of the fangirl questions. Like, not real literary questions, but, like, for those of you who've read Tifios, the, like, what happens to the hamster kind of questions.
Right. Yep.
And, I mean, to her credit, the wonderful, wonderful woman who I've spoken to maybe a dozen times in my entire life texted me back with actual answers to my questions.
Yeah, she's pretty great about that.
Yeah, she was like, I mean, this was implied, but also here's your detailed answers.
Right.
So I'm a shameless fangirl, but also Wescott is handling it pretty well.
No, I think her responding to you is very indicative about how much she cares as an educator, but also as an author.
Yeah.
For the people that care about her works and in general. I was more interested in the fact that you finished the book.
Yeah, so
which is a very steep reading curve that you went through there.
Exactly. So last podcast, I offhandedly mentioned that, like, it was hard to pick up for the first 6 or so chapters, but now I had just gotten to, like, 2 chapters and I couldn't put the book down.
Absolutely.
And that just continued. Like, after we finished the podcast, I went home. Pretty sure I read more that night. And literally, I couldn't put the book down. I finished it, like, every free moment I had after last podcast, I read that book until I finished it. It was amazing. The end of that book is phenomenal. That book in general is pretty good. I don't remember where I was going with that, but yeah, I finished the book like 2 podcasts in advance, which I honestly never thought would happen here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that overall, we would both agree that it takes a little bit of time to get into that book. But once you hit that, like, 12 chapter mark, which seems long for most books, but I would say that these chapters are fairly small. Mm-hmm. You really get hooked, and it's hard to put down after that point.
I agree. And normally when people say that about books, I usually disagree because, like, the beginning parts when everything is cool is usually my favorite parts of books.
Sure.
But, like, this one was just so interesting and, like, I don't know, it didn't catastrophize the way that most books do, where it's like all of a sudden everything is terrible and, like, I don't know. That just bugs me so much about most books, honestly.
Absolutely.
And this one, like, did an appropriate amount of catastrophizing.
Yeah, I mean, understandably so, given the circumstances of what happens in the 2 or 3 months that this book chronicles.
Yeah, and that's something Allie and I sort of talked about earlier when we were talking about just our general feelings on the book, is all books happen within a really short time span, but this book happens within an extraordinarily short time span, all within the last term of a senior year of high school.
Yep.
Which is, like, very short.
Yeah, I think there's only been one novel that I've read with a shorter time frame, and that was a book that I read, about a month and a half ago, and it happened within the span of, like, 8 hours.
Ooh, what book?
If I Shoot or something, it was chronicling a school shooting.
Interesting. Wow.
And so I would definitely say that if we ever want to read it, I definitely would read it for the podcast again, because I think that I definitely got hooked like immediately and just like read it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think kind of being able to go back and read it more so for content and those kinds of things. But that was one of the books that I've read with the shortest amount of time frame that a whole novel kind of discusses.
Interesting. I'm sure I've read some with short time frames as well. I just can't think of any.
Yeah,
partly because
absolutely.
I'm drunk, but also because
Well,
books are hard to remember every book I've ever read.
Especially when you're trying to do it on the spot.
Exactly. So I feel like we got away from it a little bit there. We are going to be talking about characters
Yes.
in this episode by sort of my request. I always like thinking about characters, character development, who the characters are as people.
Oh my god. Well, it's true. Yeah, you did suggest this for one of the podcast topics when we were creating this podcast in general.
Exactly. And with this one, it doesn't work as well because it happens within such a short time frame. The characters really don't have a chance to grow and develop, like, deeply in this as much as they do in other novels, but I still think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I think that regardless, in any sort of novel that follows the standard arc, there's going to be something that triggers development of characters. And whether or not they choose to follow that is what creates an interesting conversation.
I, in theory, agree, but more appropriately, I completely disagree because...
Please.
Have you ever read or heard of The Catcher in the Rye?
Okay. Exclusion being The Catcher in the Rye.
That is literally...
Yes.
This is... I know this is
Salinger is a... Yeah. Yeah.
This is my most controversial thing that I'll probably ever say on this podcast. That's
Haley's
not even true.
glaring at everything in general, by the way.
Literally so true. I hate that book so much. Nothing happens plot-wise. Nothing happens character development-wise. Nothing happens at all, as a matter of fact. Literally nothing. They're not moving on. Whatever, I'm
We
done.
might need to read The Catcher in the Rye.
We would not read The Catcher in the Rye. You would read The Catcher in the Rye. And I would sit here pissed off every fucking week about how stupid this not book is.
Okay, fair. We might eventually, in like the summer or something, have to do like a book a week or something, just to do those ones where we have a lot of feelings, but it's not worth doing like a whole month about.
True.
Because like Mrs. Dalloway is a lot like that, where it's just like it kind of chronicles a whole day and nothing really happens, but it's a very like prominent book within the literary canon.
Yeah.
And it's fine, but it's like it's one that you have to read as an English major, but it's just like ugh.
Yeah.
So that would be one where it's like I have a lot of feelings, but not necessarily like good ones, kind of thing.
Exactly. The other one, that's a great idea because the other book I have those exact feelings about is The Road.
Oh my god, yeah, you hate The Road, and I love The Road.
Hate The Road. Oh my god.
Yeah, one of the things we might have to do is like put all of these in a like literary or like an imaginary hat and have folks suggest them. So when we're in a blank between like a long series or something, do these.
I definitely agree. I don't know, again, how I got to angry ranting. I feel like that's going to be a theme during this podcast.
I agree. I don't mind it though.
Yeah, great. So sort of moving forward, character growth. Do you think that Mara, the main character, sort of grows as a person over this book?
No. No. And I think that my opinions on that mainly have to deal with the fact of what we talked about as far as time. Because bearing most circumstances, 2 to 3 months is not a lot of time to become an amazing new person. So when I think about Mara's character, I think of a quintessential senior in high school. Someone who has this desire for like the stereotypical high school movie experience. And then a lot of things happen to her, but I wouldn't say that she changes a lot within the 2 to 3 months that this text chronicles.
I honestly completely agree, and I feel like that's sort of highlighted or proven or what have you during the later part of the book when she throws her sort of like temper tantrum about going to the last softball game.
Yeah.
Like that whole experience, that whole priority, that whole we have to go and so I can see what I can do. Like that whole thing proves to me that she's still pre-experienced Mara. Like she's still this immature little, I don't know. I don't really like Mara as a person, honestly. She's a really cool character, but I don't like her as a person, so.
Yeah. And I think it's very indicative to me that her and Sam go to Portland, and even though they're going to different schools, they're still like talking and together. Like she's still trying to carry on this like dynamic from high school into college, which, as we know, that usually does not work. Like you're still trying to bring these good memories into a new space and a new community kind of thing.
True. Also, shout out to the University of Portland. I think it was Sam that ends up going there. Like I went to UP. Like I was like, oh, what up?
Also, speaking of alma maters and relevant things, and our high school centennial doing the Wild Feminist t-shirts.
True, yeah.
So I thought that was hella dope. And I think it's nice because in the Virulent series, which Wescott bases that off of, it's based off of Centennial, which is really awesome.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before, that like the geographical layout is aggressively Centennial.
It's literally Centennial.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome.
Okay, so Carly, Mara's best friend, how do you think she sort of like evolves and grows as a person throughout this novel?
I wouldn't say that she's a drastically new person from start to finish. I would say that potentially her empathy is a little bit more expanded.
I completely disagree with that.
Maybe her sympathy.
I completely disagree with that.
Okay, go on.
Great. So I think that Carly, if anything, becomes a worse person, right? I think Carly, if anything, becomes a worse person with less empathy and less sympathy throughout the novel. But honestly, I don't think she develops at all because I think in the beginning we just simply don't know all of her facets. But in the end, it's super obvious that she literally just considers everyone around her a pawn. She gets mad when people don't act the way she wants them to act and don't play the roles in her life that she wants them to play. She doesn't care about people's individuality or like how they themselves are doing. She only cares about people in relation to her.
Yeah, I guess that's true because her tantrums in the beginning from the softball games are still crucially the same as the tantrums that she has in the forest with Mara at the end of the novel.
Exactly. Everything is so centered around her. Even at the beginning, like I think the first softball game we literally ever see where Carly's like, it's all my fault that we lost. You don't know. Like everyone's going to be blaming me. Right. And even though Mara agrees, I don't think that's the truth. Like I don't think everyone's going to be blaming her. I think she's just infinitely self-centered.
Yeah. Do you think that is I don't know, do you think that that's a personality component from her, or do you think that has anything to do with the dynamic that she has with her mom? Because I know that that's touched on a little bit there. Like, do you think that she is self-centered because she has to be because of her family dynamic?
Not really. I mean, I guess, but every single flaw we ever have, anyone that ever has existed, can always blame it back to like how they were raised and blah, blah, blah. I don't think that in any way negates from the fact that Carly's a selfish person. Like, sure, her mom doesn't spend enough time or whatever focused on her, but who cares? Oh my God, grow up.
Well, and there's even like the quips in the novel that are meant to be almost humorous that still kind of show her selfishness, like the way that she color coordinates the folder.
The tabs and the highlights. And
and as you read it, you're meant to see it as humorous because you're reading it from Mara's perspective, but even still, it's like you went through all this effort just so that Mara could compliment you and give you praise for all of this kind of thing.
Exactly.
And there's that like best friend award thing that they have as well.
That's an interesting thought that I honestly never had. Like, she does all of these good friend things, honestly, I feel like mostly to get the best friend award, which, I mean, she kind of touches on later, but, like, she really is just that. And also, I might be criticizing her too heavily because I see so much of myself in Carly. Like,
Wow.
when reading the novel, I identify so much with Carly. So I pick out all of her bad flaws and relate them to all of my bad flaws.
Sure.
So, I mean, I might not be being fair, but also Carly's selfish and I hate her.
Well, and I think that it also shows more of her personality as well when it comes to the party situation.
Mm-hmm.
When Mara needed that support, she needed her best friend award person there, and no one was there to support her.
Exactly.
So,
Well,
and it didn't that she end up even blaming Mara for acting out in that way as well?
She does blame Mara for acting out at the party. I don't know if it really spawns from that or not, but whatever. And the other time that Carly isn't there and acts like she was or acts like she didn't have to be or whatever was when Mara's really freaked out the first time she sees a ghost, and she's like reaching out to people and she's like, I need you here right now.
And she was at her mom's birthday. That's right.
Which is a valid response. I know that she's at her mom's birthday, but then she gets so upset that someone else was there for Mara, and
That's
it's like,
right.
oh my goodness, chill.
Yeah. And I know that it's a component of it is the immaturity of like being a high schooler, but I do think that, I don't know, you're still, what, 18? So there is still some level of adolescence, adulthood components there as well.
Yeah.
That you should kind of know those too.
It is really interesting to me how obvious it is that Wescott understands high school seniors.
It's
Like-
true.
Like, they're so real. Like, again, I don't like these characters, but I don't like them because they're 18 and I'm 22 and I can see who I was at 18 in these characters.
Right, absolutely. It's definitely clear that not only does she spend a majority of her time listening to these conversations and interacting with folks of these ages, but that spending time with these folks helps her remember the experiences that she had as well.
Yeah.
Like she's very much still steeped into this age group.
Exactly.
Which makes her being a YA novel is so successful.
And
it
so
doesn't
relatable.
feel inauthentic.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel artificial.
Absolutely. I would agree.
Okay, so the other people that I think had really interesting character developments, and these people I actually do think grew as people, are Mara's parents.
I would agree.
Mara's mom goes through this mom crisis where at the beginning, she thinks she's so connected with her children. She thinks she is, mom award. And then at the end, she I feel like she realizes that she's actually not close with her children, and she sort of accepts that and moves forward.
Yeah, Mara's mom is a terrible character in the best of ways. It's written so well and is such a relatable character in a way that I wish it wasn't, because I do think that not only is it relatable in our experiences, but I do think that for a majority of people that read this text, they will find some components of relatability in this mom character. And I'm so interested in the way that as she moves forward in this text, she realizes that, yeah, she's not as connected to her children as she once thought that she was, and that her personal facade of being the hot chocolate mom, the minivan mom, is really a facade, because the whole small town that she's in realizes that she's no longer this person anymore.
Well, and I think she is okay with that. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think that she is okay that other people know she's not. But what I find most interesting about her mom is when she's faced with this realization that she isn't close with her children, that she's actually kind of a terrible mom, she is like, well, whatever. She doesn't really care that she's a terrible mom, She doesn't really have any emotional connection to her children, it seems, honestly.
Do you think that she would have acted out with more resentment or more pleading towards the town if it would have been an action that reflected more negatively on her than more negatively on her children?
I don't quite understand.
So when all of this came out, it was very much against Mara, right? And
yes.
against Soren. So that caused her to have to come out and have to talk to the town and it was more of an embarrassment for her family.
Yes.
And she was a spokesperson for her family. But do you think that she would have acted differently if it was something that had come out against her?
Yes.
So, I don't know, laundering, something along that lines.
I really do, because the way that she responds to this, like, family embarrassment, familial embarrassment, is by sending Mara away. And then, like, I mean, we don't really see her interact with the town after that, but I imagine every time she, like, makes eye contact, she just sort of shrugs. You know, she's like, oh, my silly teenage daughter.
Right.
My silly children. So, you know, in a way, she's forced to admit to the town that she's a terrible mom, but in a, like, my children are terrible, not I am terrible as their parent.
Well, and I think that is indicative of the fact that her and Troy still wanted to go to graduation at the end. And that was the reason why Mara didn't want to go. Mm-hmm. So her mom still wanted to keep up that performative aspect of this is the picture-perfect family. And that's still very obviously not the case because the town knows what's going on. It's something that they can't avoid at this point.
Yeah. Honestly, Mara's mom, they all make me so freaking frustrated. Let's talk about her dad, because her dad, I feel like, is one of the few characters who truly grows in a positive manner.
Please. You seem to have a lot of feelings about him, so tell me.
I really do. So Mara's sort of sent away to her father, who's never been a father, and the dad makes a comment at some point that's like, I don't remember if he says it or if Mara thinks it, blah, 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 but he implies that the punishment of sending Mara to her dad is twofold. Is like, here, you deal with her, and she's gonna hate it anyways.
Right. Shout out to the dogs.
Shout out to the dogs. And the dad, like, really takes that and runs with it. He tries to be Mara's friend, but not in this, like, artificial, like, dad bro sort of way. I mean, I guess it starts out that way, but all parenting does.
Yeah.
And he really becomes this, like, really great father figure, and he learns to grow and mature in relation to his daughter and in relation to his partner that he's chosen. Like, he really learns to... He doesn't really care about the things that are important to them, I don't think, but he learns to, like, indulge them and not begrudge them what's important to them.
I agree. You've mentioned before that when you were reading about Mara's dad, it was indicative to you that Wescott knew a lot of good father figures in her life.
That's so true, because reading, even when he, like, flubs up, even when he isn't the best dad in the world, every interaction with him is so... It feels so genuinely good dad. You know, like, so loving. And I grew up without a father, so the whole time I was like, man, is this what it's like to have a father figure? That's so cool.
Right.
So it seems really obvious that Wescott either had a good dad or, you know, whatever, because she so perfectly articulates that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that what's nice about the father figure that she has is it's not the Troy character of, like, the backwards hat and the skateboard kind of trying too hard, but not really having any authority or even any kind of relationship in the family dynamic. But it's also not this, like, detached and also harsh emotional figure that I think that sometimes the masculine father figure is portrayed as.
Right, like the coughing. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the, like... has the sex talk by just, like, pushing a condom forward and, like, that's it kind of thing, or, like, does it overlay with, like, a shotgun kind of thing. Yeah. I think he's emotional, but in a very realistic way, and is vulnerable and in a very realistic way. And so it's just very refreshing to see masculinity portrayed in a way that's relatable and also refreshing, in a way that I would want folks in my classes to be aspiring to be, even though this marriage didn't work, even though he has had failed dating relationships. I think that it's still a personality type where he does genuinely care about his daughter and the stepson and the health of the dynamic that he's in.
Exactly. Like, he's very aloof, but not in a, like, masculine, like, in a faux masculine way. He's aloof in a person way. Yeah, like,
not in a laughing track sitcom kind of way. Yeah.
But he's just like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but sure, I'm here for it.
Right. Yeah.
Which I really love, honestly.
Yeah, she humanizes him in a way that does not usually happen in any sort of media, and it just is very refreshing.
Agreed.
Shout out to the dogs.
Indeed. Hi, dog.
Another one of the parental figures that I do think grows is as Abby's mom.
Okay.
And I know that I had mentioned to you prior to you getting to that point in the book that it was a what's eating Gilbert Grape kind of situation, because her mom very much reminded me of the mom in that situation as well.
Absolutely.
And I think that character was also very much humanized for me as well. I think that just like Mara's dad, that could have very easily gone wrong, could have also easily fallen into the traps of stereotypes, and I'm very thankful that it wasn't.
Me too. Honestly, Abby's mom is a character that, like, I didn't respect when we met her, I guess. I don't know. Respect is hard, but I really appreciated her at the end. It was obvious to me that she learned to realize that she is still the boys' mothers, even if they're dead.
I agree.
She is no longer this, like, woman who's lost everything. She's this woman whose life has simply changed.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that she's having to grapple with what it means to no longer be the town's tragedy, but still be coping with tragedy.
Yeah.
And that's a very hard place to be in for anyone.
And I feel like the same sort of applies for Abby in a completely different way. But Abby, I think, really grows. Like, when we first meet her, she's this character whose whole life is surrounded by the fact that her brothers died. Yeah. And her brothers were murdered, as a matter of fact. Not even just died.
Right.
But she's very resentful of this fact. Like, it's obvious that her whole life is about that, and she hates it.
Right.
And at the end, I think we sort of see an Abby that sort of recognizes that her whole life will always be about the fact that her brothers were murdered, but she doesn't have to let that consume her life. She moves forward with that information and accepts it, and accepts that that's just a part of who she is, which, honestly, dealing with grief and dealing with, loss and stuff, that's something people always tell you is, like, you'll never get over this. It'll just change. It'll just be, and you'll have to just accept it.
Right.
Which I think I found a lot of personal connection with Abby because I totally got her growth development.
Yeah, I think two of the most memorable aspects of Abby's character, I think, for me, was when she was smoking in that first scene when Mara and Sam met her, in the sense that she wanted to create, like, a memorable experience for them to bring back to the high school that they were from. And then at the end, when they were having their faux prom and they brought I think they had brought stuffed animals to the gravestones or something like that. Yeah. And just her being able to have folks around her that may not be able to empathetically understand, but are just sympathetic to what she's going through.
Yeah.
And are able to be around her regardless of what she's going through, no matter what mood she's in that day, which I think she needs, because she's been very lonely.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
It's funny that you relate mostly to those two, like, end cap scenes, because the moment that I relate to Abby the most is this oddly specific moment. But do you remember when they pick Abby up and she's sitting in the back of the car and she just starts chain smoking in the back of someone else's car?
Yeah.
I felt that so deeply. It reminded me so much of, again, the grieving process. And like, you remember, like, hanging out with you and Bailey when I was in the midst of my grief? Like, it just felt so raw and so real, even though nothing really happened. That was such a throwaway scene, but I was like, wow, that is grief at its finest.
Yeah, and I think that that's another thing that helps me realize just how great of an author that Wescott is, and maybe not even how great of an author that she is, but just that she understands human experiences, because, like, that is such an oddly specific experience that I would say most people probably can't relate to, but is very indicative of what grief is like. Like, that is, like, disassociating at its best, and yet she pinpointed it.
Exactly. Like, it was so real because this is, again, one of those oddly specific memories, and, like, I'm just drunk enough to be talking about this on a podcast.
Please.
But, like, do you remember when we drove down to Bend and we stopped to get me cigarettes because I, was grieved chain smoking, and I, like, broke down and cried in front of this random guy who was not selling me cigarettes, and I was like, I'm going to visit my boyfriend's grave. I just want some cigarettes.
Yeah. And, oh my gosh, yeah. And we had to go to, like, 3 different places just to find those very specific ones. Yeah.
And that was just so, like, Wescott somehow captured all of those feels in that one scene where she's just like callously chain smoking in the back of someone else's car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say one of the other most memorable experiences within Abby's arc was when she was fighting with Mara at the ice cream parlor. And I think that was just, like, when she spit on Mara, I don't know why, it was just, like, that encapsulated her character for me. She had such raw expressions of emotions, whether it was grief or anger or just not trusting people, that it felt real.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's, I think, my favorite thing about this book, too, in and of itself, is that this book is just so real in a way that's, like, obviously fiction, but it's so real.
Yeah. One of the folks that I would say was not authentic to me, though, was Sam.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
He felt like an absolute throwaway to me.
Like, I'm pretty sure the only reason he existed was to create the trope of a YA novel love triangle.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure that was his whole reason for existing.
And just to provide a little bit of backstory to help Mara understand ghosts and spooky stuff.
Yeah. His character, I thought was inauthentic. There was nothing about him that I was like, that's a real human. And Mara's interactions with him were really inauthentic as well. I was like, that's not Mara. That's not a teenager. This isn't real.
The only thing that felt slightly authentic to me about their situations was the soulmates thing. Just because in the sense of, like, oh, we only have a month left until we graduate, I have to make this seem so real, kind of thing. And just this, like, desire to make it seem more significant than it actually is.
So, like, you mean the only thing you found true and authentic was the soulmate aspect, but not in the fact that they were talking about being soulmates, or not in the fact that they were soulmates, but in the fact that they were trying to talk about and act as if they were soulmates.
Yeah, not necessarily, I guess, the soulmate dialogue, but just in the sense that when you feel like you have this countdown, like summer relationships, like that desire to make it feel more authentic because the fact that you know that there's a time clock on it, kind of thing.
That's really fair. The character I actually thought was really, really realistic in a weird sort of way was the Asian Lunch Club Jessica.
Yes.
Jessica made me have so many feelings for her having, like, I'm pretty sure 0 lines.
Whaley Chan.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to me because her name is not Jessica.
Correct.
They call her Jessica. But her name is not Jessica.
Right. Yeah, they call her Jessica purely for convenience and laziness, it sounds
exactly. Like. And, like, I don't know, because, again, we don't really talk to Jessica that much, but I don't know if she has been like, nah, just call me Jessica. But it struck a chord with me because people don't just decide to go by something that isn't their name.
Right.
They don't just do that without having to. I mean, people change their names, sure, but from Whaley Chan or whatever to Jessica isn't because she likes the name Jessica. It's because white people refuse to learn how to say her name properly.
Yep.
And that's the most accurate and frustrating. I can't even imagine what it's like to have people refuse to say your name so often that you find it easier to just pretend you're someone else.
Yeah, I would say out of this whole novel, that was one of the things that I found the most accurate out of it, because there were so many folks that growing up changed their names simply for the convenience of white people. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, when I read that, I was like, holy shit. Like, that calls out to me in such a way. And I don't personally have experience with it, but I know that story.
Exactly. And, like, it's not the exact same thing, but it reminds me so much of, I remember in AP Calculus, my teacher, bless her heart, she's the most wonderful person, but she was like, at the end of the year, she was talking about how proud she was of all of us, blah, blah, blah. And she offhandedly mentioned we had this Asian boy in our class named Jackie.
My God.
Right? And she offhandedly mentioned how proud she was of her AP Calculus class, that we got this newcomer in halfway through the year and we just embraced him into our culture.
Oh my God.
And, you know, she was just so proud of us for really letting in an outsider,
Jesus
someone
Christ.
who had such a different experience than we did. And somebody in the class, this white girl named Brittany, was like, Miss Doobie, Jackie's from Florida.
Literally one of the I don't know, the most prominent jokes that happened our senior year because it's so real.
So real.
Like, it's literally the Tom Haverford joke of, like, no, I'm from North Carolina.
Literally, like Miss Doobie thought that we, like, embrace this person straight out of Asia, and, like, Jackie's Asian, sure, but, like, he's from Florida.
I mean, granted, Florida is, like, its own space.
True.
Like, it does seem like its own kind of continent, but, like, no, Jackie's just from Florida. Jesus Christ.
Right.
Yeah, that whole component of it, I think, was not only demonstrated that, like, Wescott's woke, but also that Wescott spends a lot of time in high schools and, like, sees those dynamics between people.
Speaking of Wescott being woke,
please.
The only thing I didn't understand, and it seemed so out of character for Wescott, is, so I mentioned that Sam, I thought, served only as a love triangle purpose.
Please.
And the obvious love triangle being between Mara, Carly, and Sam. But Wescott doesn't hit on at all the fact that there's this obvious love situation between Carly and Mara.
It seemed like such an easy segue.
Like, so obvious. I genuinely believed, like, at the last part where they were, like, on the teacher's porch and stuff, and they were, like, making up, I really thought they were gonna kiss.
Yeah.
Like, I really just, my soul was like, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Wescott just doesn't.
Well, and there's so many ways that you could read this in that way of, like, they're best friends, right? And so there's so many times during that, especially when it's establishing it in those first couple chapters, where Mara says, like, oh, we get each other like nobody else. Like, we can read each other's minds without having to say anything, kind of thing. And even, I think she brings up that her mom and Troy question her sexuality.
Literally, yes.
And so it's like, okay, but, like, is this gonna happen? And it doesn't at all. It could have very easily been, and I'm not sure why it didn't happen other than the fact that maybe the book would have been published, other than the fact that I think her book was self-published.
Yeah, see, I kept going back and forth, like, did she see it and chose to ignore it for, like, accessibility, to not make her readers angry? Like, did she choose to ignore it for that reason? Did she choose, sort of like J.K. Rowling and Dumbledore, did she choose to just sort of imply? Like, did she think it was heavily implied enough that, like, those of us who were woke could read it that way, and those of us who were ignorant could read it heterosexual and be fine? Or did she just not see it at all? I doubt the last one, but, like, it's not implausible.
Yeah. I don't know. Because it doesn't seem like she would implicitly choose to not discuss it at all. Especially because Carly does mention her jealousy for the fact that Sam is interrupting their dynamic.
Totally.
And so it just, I don't know. Maybe it was something where it could be a conversation point and it could be read either way, but I feel like that happens so much in novels that there's something to be said for having distinct covert representation there as well.
Well, and, like, I highlighted enough, even, like, without even thinking about it, reading through this book, that I could make a real textual go at Carly and Mara being together or being in love or whatever. And again, that was before I even got to the end, before I even realized that they weren't gonna be together. She literally calls them soulmates. They have so many moments of sexual tension that even they both recognize, like, is tense.
Sure.
Like, and she even refers to them fighting as a breakup that one time when she's like, you know, we had this massive breakup and all of English was witness to it.
Well, and, like, the fact that her standing on the home plate and Carly being on the pitcher's mound is, like, where they communicate best is when they're not saying anything at all. Which, like, if you're talking about, like a lesbian relationship and, like, not being able to say anything at all in front of the public, like, that is having to navigate those spaces too. And then, like, when she has to go back and read the folder and she's doing it at the softball field where she feels safe, like, there's so many things that you could definitely find a relationship there.
So, like, I haven't mentioned this to you yet, but I hope this is, like, appropriate. I honestly think that the softball field and, like, them communicating the best there and them making silent eye contact there, I think it's a metaphor for, like, sex. I think it's a metaphor for the bedroom. Like,
obviously.
It was so obvious because, you know, in those, like, you know, where we communicate the best, where I can most show my love for her, like, without having to say anything, I was like, wow, this is them having sex, literally. I don't understand.
Well, and the fact that when Mara gets pulled out and there is a different catcher there, Curly screws up and it doesn't work
and she
at
even
all.
like stops the game to look at Mara in the stands, like,
and the
off.
fact that softball is most known for the stereotypes of lesbians.
Oh, I forgot about that. I've never been a softball player, and I totally forgot that that was like a thing. You're totally right.
Yeah.
So like Wescott had to know, right? Like she really implied this, right?
Well, Wescott played softball.
Exactly.
So she knew all. I mean, that's why the descriptions of softball are so, like, absolutely right and on point in this. So this had to be a thing.
And like, just for background, you played softball?
All my life.
Yes. And I know you played like a whole bunch of sports or whatever, but like you were a softball girl. You've had a similar-ish experience. Okay.
Well, I did not see my pitchers and my catchers as having sex on the field, and I did not see myself ever as being a lesbian. But yes,
pitchers and catchers, even like, come on.
I know.
Like, come on.
And like the rhythm of the pitch being like a phallic movement, like. Oh my God, Wescott, you had to have seen this, right?
I'm pretty sure this is a literal love triangle that Wescott couldn't act that way because, like, it was published in 2014 or whatever when, like, you know.
Oh, those 2 years ago. So much has changed.
I mean, I don't think so much has changed. I don't think even now she could self-publish a successful novel that stars a lesbian couple.
No, I agree. I think especially within, like, the context of being a teacher in the school district, I think that would cause a lot of problems with the teachers, or not necessarily with the teachers, but I think with the parents of her students.
Yeah, and without even being a LGBTQ novel. Like, it was just a novel that has a lesbian relationship. I don't think she could have done that.
It was a horror novel.
Exactly.
Yeah, it had nothing to do, yeah.
So I honestly think and hope that Wescott really meant for them to end up together, and really, like, that was a love triangle through and through, and I think she recognizes that. But I don't know. I guess I'll ask her, because apparently I just text Wescott for all the questions I have.
Speaking of it being a horror novel, should we talk about Soren?
I guess maybe. Although, with all these rants, I, like, don't even know what to say about Soren now.
And his character development as being the one who had to have identity development, as navigating Soren as Colton.
Yeah.
Jesus.
True.
Being a preschooler is rough.
Being a preschooler.
So, Haley.
So, yes.
Soren.
Soren. The struggle is that, like, there's nothing super interesting to say about Soren now that we've had, like, the most interesting conversation.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to have that kind of conversation.
Right? Me neither. So, like, yeah, Soren's character develops. Yeah, Soren goes from this, like, 4-year-old with flashbacks to this 4-year-old with less flashbacks. Cool.
Do you think he would be taken more or less seriously if this was a character Mara's age, having these experiences?
Less seriously? I don't know. I think in a professional sense, I think he would be taken less seriously because, like, kids remember their past lives and kids are honest and teenagers are stupid and projection of whatever.
Sure.
So, like, less seriously, but also he'd have the skills to articulate. But also, it's so boring. Who cares about Soren? Jesus Christ.
Great.
Yep.
Should we reevaluate Soren during our theme episode next week?
I think we absolutely should because, like, I'm sure there are a lot of interesting things to say about Soren, but, like, nothing about him is super interesting compared to the amazing discussion we just had. And there's nothing, like, to really say about him in terms of character growth because, like, he does grow. He goes from this child who actively remembers being Cole to this child who less so remembers being Cole. He literally grows, but it's just not interesting at all.
Yeah.
It is, but not right now. You know?
I agree. And I think that at the end of the day, he's a 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 or 3 months is not a lot of time, especially for a 4-ish-year-old.
See, I disagree. I think that's, like, more time for him than it is for anyone else in the book.
Well, yeah, I mean, literally in the sense of, like, he's growing more than I think everybody else is. But I also think that as the novel goes on, he gets less attention than like Mara does.
Literally
because it becomes
true.
more a novel about her and less a novel about Soren's experiences.
That's true. And, like, there's some part at the end-ish where Mara's like, well, and isn't this all really about Soren anyways? And it takes me a moment. I sort of get taken aback by it. I'm like, you're dumb if you really think that you're still thinking about Soren. And also Wescott's parenting is showing through. Those are literally the only thoughts I have about Soren toward the end is like, Wescott's a mom, I get it. Mara's stupid, I get it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it'd be more effective to reevaluate and see if some themes pop out about Soren for our last theme episode next week, for sure.
I absolutely agree. And with that, Allie, so where can people listen to us?
Well, they can listen to us now, because they're obviously doing so. But they can...
Oh, that's a fair point. I was like, no, they're not. We're in your living room.
Well, you see, SoundCloud is one of the best ways. iTunes is one of the best ways. We are still publishing our episodes on YouTube. And if you are bored for 4 hours now that this episode will be published and want to caption those videos so that we can have transcript
and accessible
content.
Transcribed. There we go.
Ah, there it is. And have those available for mo folks. That would be dope.
I personally listen on iTunes. Where do you listen, Allie?
I listen on iTunes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the podcast app.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, me too.
That's my personal favorite.
Yeah, so sweet. You can listen to us in any of those places, but both of us listen to our own podcast on iTunes.
Yeah, I get the notification that our podcast is up on the podcast app.
Admittedly, our podcast is the only podcast I have set to download like all episodes and not just like replace the newest one.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So any I haven't listened to are all downloaded, just infinitely glaring at me to listen to them.
Oh. Well, I mean, that's some dedication.
Right.
Where can they find us on social media, Haley?
I think the far and away the best place to find us is Twitter. Because reasons that I don't care to explain right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys, what?
Absolutely, I agree.
Mm-hmm. You guys can find us and contact us at chapters letter N chill. That is our handle or username or gamer tag.
Oh my
Twitter.
God.
Whatever.
Yes, please.
So chapters N chill on Twitter.
Yeah, I think I want to get better about adding more stuff on there regularly throughout the week.
I agree. I just never really know whatever. That's a discussion for you and I, but I just never know really what to add.
I agree. Yeah, I think one of the best things that happened last week was us deciding that we're not going to sign off with our initials anymore, but signing off with emojis.
I agree. It should be infinitely obvious which emojis we use.
I agree.
So there's really no use even discussing that.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, we sign our tweets with emojis, which is super nifty. And currently, nope, it won't be current by the time you listen to it, so never mind. But y'all are cool. You can also find us on Tumblr at chaptersandchill.tumblr.com. And that one is actually and because we don't have a character limit on the Tumblr username.
I agree. Yes, I also plan to be posting more information there as we go on. Hopefully, when we start using and choosing books that have more notoriety, there will be more content for us to be continually posting.
Agreed. I have Tumblr like infinitely logged in on our Tumblr on my browser.
Yes.
But I still never really find anything to post on there because again, there's not much notoriety. There's not much. But if you'd like to ask us questions or you're a Tumblr user, please follow us there.
Yeah, absolutely. Another good place for discussions is our Slack, which is also chaptersandchill.slack.com. That's also going to be a good place, I think, as we continue on for including discussion questions, commentaries about podcast episodes, suggestions for new books to read, any and all of that kind of fun stuff. So please join in and hop on in so that we can all start chatting it along and stuff.
For shizzles. You can also email us if you don't want it to be public or you feel like you have a really, really long thing you want to talk to us about. AllieandHaleyRead@gmail.com. And once again, who knows if that's a passive-aggressive statement or just a nifty email. Who knows? Yeah. But email address at AllieandHaleyRead@gmail.com.
We still want to know from last week if someone that you loved died, if you would want them to haunt you. And I think this week's email/Twitter question will be, I don't know, do you want more? No. I want to prompt about
the love triangle
yes.
thing. Me too.
Think about it while I talk about Patreon.
Yeah, will do.
So we have a Patreon. It's chaptersandchill.patreon.com. We're using this to help fund the hosting costs for publishing on SoundCloud and all that jazz, as well as any additional funds that we get will be able to help with more books, more equipment, all that kinds of fun stuff. We have our rewards set as low as $1 a month, so please go check it out. There's lots of fun rewards to give all of you all, so we'd love to have lots of patrons and perks for that and such.
So the only question I thought about, and please tell me if you don't want this one, but like I guess the Mara and Carly situation could be read as just friendship. So I guess my question is like, what's the difference between being in love with someone as a significant other, like being in love with them, and like just having them as a best friend that you connect with really well? Like, what's the difference there?
Platonic and romantic soulmates?
Exactly.
So like soulmates in Grey's Anatomy, like Meredith and Christina soulmates versus like Meredith and Derek soulmates.
Exactly. Like, what makes it so that you don't marry your literal best friend?
Okay. Yeah, I like that one a lot. Yeah, let's do that. I want to know all of the thoughts that folks have.
Real. And we will also think on it and sort of not give answers, but sort of talk about it again next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Mm-hmm. Are we changing the Office reference this week, Kaylee?
I was going to, but I couldn't find any spot to naturally insert the 2 quotes that I had planned out for the Office this week.
Okay. So,
that being said, I think that God gave me this Dundee, and God gave me... I don't actually remember what the quote is because I'm still a little drunk, but I feel God in this Chili's tonight, and I feel God in this podcast tonight because God gave us lesbian love triangles and homosexual sexual tension.
Honestly, God bless. And I also feel God in this Chili's tonight. And I also feel the little pup that's keeping my feet warm right now.
Who is very cute, by the way. Good pup. Cute pup.
Yeah. Thankfully, no barks this week. And I'm going to go before they decide to change that. But yes, I feel God in this Chili's tonight. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.